Welcome everyone to Turn the Culture Up. This is a continuation of our Advocate series. This is part 3, a continuous and effective employee development. And if you're unfamiliar with the Advocate series, it's a series that provides specific content over a wide range of topics. Here at the Olson Group, we strive to be your HR advocate, or CAT as we call it. We even have our own very special compliance cat, Eva, who lives with her owner, and our HR consultant, Roxy Coliv. For more details, please check out our website, theolsongroup.com. Now on to today's event. As always, we're recording this webinar and it'll be available shortly after, along with all the slides. I just have to say on a side note, I'm personally thrilled to introduce today's speaker. I've known Brett for a while now, and I'm just always impressed with his intentional thoughts and perspectives. So I'm excited about today's webinar. So Brett Hoogeveen is the co-founder of Better Culture, an Omaha-based technology and training company intently focused on making the world a better place to work. Brett has a fascinating background as an engineer, investor, and healthcare executive at QLI of Omaha. As a bit of a special treat today, Brett's going to be giving us a preview on Better Culture's newest in development product that was recently selected by the state of Nebraska for a competitive innovation prototype grant. This product is called the 20 Tenets of Culture, and you'll hear more about it today. So I'm excited for this opportunity today to learn more from a top expert on leadership and culture. And without further ado, Brett, I'm going to turn everything over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Travis, for the introduction. Good to see everyone's names, at least on the participation guide this morning. It's nice to be here. I always enjoy hanging out with the fantastic folks at the Olson Group. So good to see you here, Roxy and Sarah and Travis. Today, I have a chance to talk big picture. I use a generic title called Turn Up the Culture, and you'd think I'd have some music or something that I could blare through the speakers for you guys, but you're going to have to just visualize what it might feel like to actually turn the culture up in your organizations. And today, there's a huge benefit, obviously, from having a fantastic culture. I think that is more prevalent today than ever before with the increased demands on how hard it is to attract and keep talent in our organizations. So today I'm going to talk about how can we turn the culture up from 2 very unique perspectives. What can you do from the top down in an organization, from a management and leadership level, to strengthen your culture? And interestingly, and as Travis was mentioning, the prototype grant that we received from the state of Nebraska to help develop a new product, I'm going to show you guys something that's really innovative as far as an approach that you might take to try to build and strengthen individual performance, team chemistry, and even overall company culture from the bottom up when I have a chance to talk to you about our 20 tenets of culture that we've identified. So without any further delay, I want to get started. If you guys have questions, I'm not amazing at tracking the chat, but I would love to see comments come through or questions if you have them. You may have to give me a moment to recognize that they're there, or if we have a host from the Olson side that can monitor that as well, feel free to prompt me or even interrupt if you guys have questions. I would love to discuss. I'm happy to give you guys 45 or 50 minutes of straight content and hope you take value from that. But I'd love to interact with you as well. If you have a chance to post something in the comments, please do. So what the heck is culture? I run 2 businesses, one called Mindset, one called Better Culture. And I live in the world of workplace culture. So what the heck is culture? Let's define that before we get rolling. We define culture as the attitudes and behaviors that a group of people come to expect from one another. So when you show up at your church group, when you show up at work, when you show up at with your family at Thanksgiving, that culture that you have is essentially the attitudes and the behaviors that that group of people has come to expect from one another. You know, do we expect people to show up and grumble about the Huskers' most recent game? Great, that's part of your culture. Do we expect people to be upbeat and happy? Awesome, that's part of your culture. Do we throw executive leadership under the bus and question everything, all the motives of all of our executive leaders? That's part of your culture if that's the case, okay? So whatever those attitudes and behaviors that kind of people come to expect from one another, that's what your culture is. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about a better culture and how we can get there. And I'd like to define a better culture as we get rolling this morning as an environment that has been intentionally designed to optimize human achievement. Okay. So we want to move from whatever your evolved culture is to a better culture. And in that better culture, I want you guys to imagine this is a place that we've intentionally designed to get the best out of everyone, to help people perform at their best, to help people be most satisfied and fulfilled, both at work and in life, and to help the organization perform most optimally. That's what I define as a better culture. And today I'm going to give you two roadmaps, two perspectives. And if you tune in carefully, I'm even going to give you an opportunity to experience these two tools for yourself, to actually not just take what I say and be forced to apply it, but to actually contact me, get some proprietary, maybe even free access to a couple of things that can move you in this direction. So stay tuned for those opportunities. So quickly, what is there value in culture? Hopefully there's no one on this call that I have to convince of that, because more and more and more than ever, employers are at war with one another to attract and retain talented people. Peter Drucker has been very famous for saying things like many, many years ago, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Many organizations think that's true. More organizations today than ever know that that is true in certain regards. Strategy matters, culture matters too. So there are mountains of research out there that essentially says anything an employer can do to improve the satisfaction of an employee will ultimately improve performance and will buoy the organization as a whole. So I want you to just keep that in your mind. When we're talking about creating a better culture, anything we can do that makes the employee say, wow, I'm more satisfied, I more appreciate the company, I have more pride in my job, I feel better about my coworkers, I feel better about my manager, I feel a healthier connection to my employer, I appreciate my job. All of those things have been proven time and time again to ultimately be in the benefit of both the employee and the employer. Those are all the kinds of things we're talking about when we say we want to have a better culture. So if culture eats strategy for breakfast, and by the way, culture owns talent, okay? Talent is what a lot of organizations are focused on. What can we do to get the right people, keep the right people, fill our open positions, keep people happy, keep people motivated? I think I've made a decent case that culture plays a large role in managing your ability to attract and retain that talent. Here becomes the really big question then. Who the heck owns culture for you in your organization? Depending on the audience I'm talking to, I give one of two answers to that question. Today, I'm going to give you guys both of the answers and tell you the real truth, okay? Sometimes when I'm talking to all employees, I will say that the answer to that question is everybody owns culture. Every employee in your system contributes to your culture. And that's true. That's unequivocally true. Every employee has the ability to make your organization a better place to work, to make their job more fulfilling, to make their team more cohesive and enjoyable. Everyone has the ability to contribute to that. And on the back half of my presentation, I'm going to explain in great detail and with our innovative new 20 tenets approach, how you can help every employee sort of jump forward in their ability to contribute to their own success, their team's success, and that overall culture. So I'm going to get to that one. When I'm talking to a different audience, when I'm talking to a corporate audience, to a management audience, my answer to that question of who owns culture is a little different. Yes, everyone plays a role, but you know what? If I ask most leaders, hey, who owns finance in your organization? Most people say something along the lines of, well, our CFO. Who's in charge of technology? Well, our chief technology officer. Who's in charge of human resources? Well, it's not real hard to figure out in most organizations. If you have a CHRO, a director of human resources, the buck kind of stops there. But guess what? In most organizations, when I say who owns culture, who's the one person that's got accountability for culture? I don't get a clear answer from most organizations. And so the question here becomes, or the answer becomes, your chief culture officer owns culture. You've got one of those, right? One of the things we're increasingly doing with Better Culture is we want to be the central hub, the primary resource center for people who want to function as a chief culture officer. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have a title. It doesn't mean it's a full-time job, but it means there's a body of knowledge to understand. There are tools and resources that you can put in place. There are outside consultants and resources that can help you move that process ahead. And it means you've been given some degree of power by the organization to take the reins of culture and make decisions that move it forward. So increasingly, that's what we're trying to do for clients, is help them realize if you want to have a fantastic culture, you've got to approach this from the top down, which means A, you've got to have somebody that wants to own it strategically and be the go-to resource to focus on the things that are going to relate to culture. And B, if you really want to be good, you've got to have messaging that goes to every employee from the bottom up. So today I'm going to give you a glimpse into what that can look like from both directions. A little background on me and on us, where our company came from. My father, Dr. Kim Hoogeveen, was the founding president and CEO of an Omaha-based organization called QLI. And QLI is in the healthcare space. They're a specialized rehabilitation provider for folks that have had life-altering injuries. It is a magical place, an unbelievable organization. But their real claim to fame is 5 times in a row they were voted Omaha's #1 best place to work. And right about that time that they were voted the 5th time, my father retired from QLI after 24 years of starting the company and building it into the largest center of its kind in the country. And a lot of people, he thought he was going to go off into just sort of a quiet academic type retirement. He's a thinker and a writer and someone who likes to play with ideas. And all of a sudden people started knocking on his door and saying, hey, tell me about that culture stuff. Tell me about what you were doing. Tell me about what inspired you to lead the way that you did. So he started a company called Mindset that I joined him in at the beginning in 2011, where we ran kind of an old-fashioned management consulting firm where we would work one-on-one with client organizations to help them improve their culture. And we would do consulting work with the executive group. We would do management training with the leaders. We built a fantastic employee engagement survey that helped us diagnose where is the health of your culture and where are opportunities for improvement. But our scope of what we could impact through Mindset was very limited because everything went through us. It was an old-fashioned management consulting approach. And what we realized is we want to make a bigger impression on the world. And so last year, just before COVID started, we had made a pivot to a digital brand where we want to elevate our sites outside of Nebraska and Iowa to say, what can we do to make the world a better place to work? And through our new brand, Better Culture, we're developing products that can scale, products that can work through a distributed workforce, a virtual work environment, larger companies that are spread throughout the country or the world. And so I'm going to share a little bit about that you guys today and why it is that we think we can make a real dent in truly making the world a better place to work. I talked a little bit already about how culture comes both from the top down and the bottom up. That top down component, if you want to be great from a leadership perspective, you've got to have clarity of thought on what it means to be a leader and what you really want to expect and ought to expect from leaders in your system if you're going to make culture a priority. I'm going to take the next probably 10 to 15 minutes, maybe even a little longer, to explain to you the power of our very simple 7 principles of leadership. These were written in 1991. They are responsible ultimately for QLI's success as a fantastic, unbelievably fantastic place to work, a place that blew the scores off of the best places to work survey to a point that national consultants flew into Omaha to investigate fraud in their survey results because they didn't think a healthcare facility could have results like that. Well, they did. Okay. These 7 principles were at the core of that. And we've tried to change them over the last 3 decades to improve them. And we have not found them lacking. Every client that we interact with tends to like these. And so increasingly, as we move forward, we're going to advise organizations that care about culture to adopt these specific 7 principles as their leadership principles. So I'm going to take you through these and explain the power of what this means. And as I do that, I want you to put on your leadership hat. I want you to think about managers throughout your organization. I want you to think about vice presidents, the executive team in your organization. When those folks show up to work in the morning, how do they view their role? In addition to getting their to-do list done and fulfilling their priorities and checking the boxes, what other influence are they going to have on their system and on their people? These 7 things are what they should have in their mind as they go throughout their day. If they can do these 7 things, they will be building people and strengthening culture as they go about their daily work. The first leadership principle says that leaders focus a never-ending attention on the mission of the organization, the strength of the culture, and an uncompromising pursuit of excellence. I'm not going to take a lot of time explaining this one, but I think mission, culture, and excellence are great foundational terms for anybody who wants to be responsible for company objectives and for leading people and an organization. The second leadership principle here, I might even see if anybody, if I can get some participation from those of you on the chat here. I'd like to know if you can spot what I call the big dog. And in other words, if we go into an organization, take a look at the screen here. If we go into an organization and we try to measure the strength of their culture, we have a very detailed employee engagement survey that asks 49 questions, but those 49 questions come into these 14 domains that you're seeing on your screen. Things like, what's the risk of employees leaving? How proud are employees of the company? Is there an unhealthy amount of conflict or a lack of conflict, a lack of innovation in the organization? Do employees feel like they have input? Is there good chemistry among teams? How do people feel about their own team? How do people feel about the C-suite, the executives? Are performance standards upheld? Do people like their direct supervisor? Do they feel like they're paid fairly and that their benefits are reasonable? Do people feel appreciated? Do they like the physical environment? Do they feel like the company does a good job managing talent? And do they personally have opportunities for growth? So the question is this: as you look at these 14 items, which one of these do you think is most foundational, most important, most directly related to the overall culture score of the organization? If I could only look at one thing, what's the thing you think it is? I see a couple votes for feeling appreciated. I see a vote for pride. I see a vote for the work environment overall. Just what does it kind of feel like in the office or at home, if that's your work environment? Sure. Well, here's the deal on this one, guys. I ask this question a lot, and what I usually hear is a lot of different responses. If there's only one thing I could look at, Michael, you get credit here. The big dog is pride. Okay. Now you can tell I have little kids, right? I have an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. We're just getting out of the old Clifford phase. But the big dog here is pride. And what I mean by pride is, how proud are your employees to work where they work? How proud are they of their company? And if you show me a company where the employees are incredibly proud when they talk to their friends, to their significant others, when they talk about where they work, I'm going to show you a terrific culture and a terrifically engaged employee base. Okay. The other things certainly matter. Feeling appreciated would be in my top 3. Okay. Those of you that voted for that one, all of these matter. There's not a thing on here that doesn't matter. But if I could only look at one area, I want to know, how proud are your employees? Because on the flip side, if you show me a set of employees that aren't proud of what they do, they're not proud of the job, they're not proud of their contribution, they're not proud of their company, they're not proud to wear the t-shirt, they're not proud to tell people where they work, it's almost impossible to be a company that has a strong culture. So if there's one thing that you can primarily focus on, it's employee pride. Okay. So here's what leadership principle 2 says. Leaders create an environment where staff feel proud of their company. And guess what? They know that their company is proud of them. That's feeling appreciated. They know the company is proud of them. The 2 sides of the pride coin. So as a leader, we want to walk around looking for opportunities to build pride and looking for opportunities to help people feel appreciated. And that pride piece is something that most organizations don't intentionally focus on. They just, they hope it just magically materializes. but there are things we can do intentionally to build employee pride. And if we frame our work that way, we say, what could I do to help people feel more proud to work here? If you do a brainstorming session in your organization, put that question on the board. What could we do to help employees feel more proud to be a part of this company? I bet you'll come up with some ideas, and you'll realize you're walking past a lot of opportunities to build pride, to share information, to involve people, to maybe humanize the organization and the executive group, to build closer relationships, to get more input, to tell great stories. Whatever the answer is there, you're missing opportunities to build pride, and it's to the detriment of the organization. The third thing that I want leaders thinking when they show up to work in the morning, when they're interacting with people around them, is I want them to be hyper focused on anything that they can do to help people grow and be more successful, either at work and in their role or in life. And the in life piece is the large area that most employers just don't make time to think about. But if I want to have a fantastic culture, if I'm an employee that works for you, I would love to feel like you as my employer are unquestionably committed to my growth and success, both at work and in life. And if you'll put this hat on from this perspective and say, yeah, I want to help my employees be successful at work, obviously that covers things like training and development and, career ladder opportunities and, whatever you can do to help somebody make sure they feel like they're on a career path and they're building skills and they're moving in a direction that helps them. But if you could go beyond that and say, no, I care about you and your success and happiness outside of life, all of a sudden that opens up a whole window of things that your company has resources, has expertise, has people that have been through a lot of experiences in their life that could help your other employees in a lot of areas. And this could be little stuff like maybe, you do a fun class on how to smoke, a pork brisket that, one of your employees is fantastic about that. And other people can show up and learn about it and, pre-football season or something just for fun. Hey, I'm contributing to the growth of my people or, buying Christmas gifts on a budget or who knows what, but just something that shows your employees that you'll appreciate what they do outside of work, all the way up to big things, truly big things like accommodating people's schedules, letting people work remotely or from home. These were things we really pushed hard on pre-COVID. We don't have to push as hard anymore. If you think about what does it mean if you're an employer that's committed to your employees' success in life, it means you work your tail off to make sure that you can run your company and also accommodate what your employees would appreciate. Okay? The world has changed a lot in this direction, and it's a good thing. Employers have to work hard to keep up, but ultimately, employees will appreciate that flexibility that the employer is actually showing that they care about what your personal life looks like and how can we make work and life integrate as opposed to being come to work, do your thing. We don't care about what else you're doing. The fourth leadership principle. This one is hugely important. Leaders must protect the right of your good employees to work with other good employees. This particular leadership principle probably does more damage to workplace cultures than anything else I'm going to talk to you about. And if you don't believe that, let me share a little bit of data with you. This is a summary of 6 or 7 years worth cumulatively of our personal employee engagement survey that we run with clients. We have cumulatively added the data onto this chart. Forget the blue line, that's irrelevant. The red line is the average of every company we've ever asked across all 49 of our questions that we ask in our base employee engagement survey. The green line is the best any company has ever scored on average on that item. Okay, so you can tell it's a 9-point scale. If you look at question 1 on the left, the best score any company has ever scored on that one is like an 8.2. And the average, the red line, is a 6.7, something like that. Okay, well, look at this point right here. That red dot is the average response to a very simple question. And if you look at this graph, it is the second lowest red dot on this chart. The other two, if you look over on the other side, are questions. The two other low-hanging ones are questions that relate to, do I like what I'm being paid? And are my benefits unique? Okay. So those two questions related to compensation and benefits are really hard to score on. This one shouldn't be so hard to score on. Here's the question. My company effectively addresses poor staff performance. I want to let that settle in for just a second. We ask every employee in hundreds of companies to respond to that question. My company effectively addresses poor staff performance. And it is essentially the lowest scored question on all 49 of our questions. Now, who do you think it is that's giving that a low score? Do you think that's your underperforming slacker employees that aren't meeting standards that are saying, oh, no, my manager doesn't do anything to hold me accountable? Probably not. Those folks are probably saying, oh yeah, our company's good at that. The people that are saying, no, my company is not doing this well, my managers are not effectively addressing poor staff performance, are your star performers that are having to either put up with somebody with a negative attitude and they're frustrated with it, or carry an unfair amount of the load day in and day out as they look across the cube next to them or the assembly line, as they look at somebody else that's putting in half the effort, getting paid just the same, not showing up on time, going home early, whatever that looks like, they're sliding by and managers aren't holding them accountable. And that causes major dissatisfaction with your average and exceptional employees. So if you want to have a fantastic culture, the easiest way to shoot yourself in the foot is to not hold underperforming employees accountable. This is an essential aspect of leadership. It's essential for the operation of the company to produce high quality products and services, to have satisfied customers, but it's also extremely important for internal customer satisfaction of your own employees, for equity. If I'm showing up and doing more than my fair share and somebody else isn't, that's out of balance from an equity standpoint, from what I'm putting in and what I'm getting back. And ultimately, employees are going to make that equitable in one way or another. They're going to just say, well, screw it, I'm just going to work a little less hard. Or they're going to ask you for a raise, or they're going to go somewhere else where they're going to feel like they're appreciated. So I know I push on this one a little bit, but it's really, really important. The fifth leadership principle out of our 7 is that leaders encourage open discussion and analysis as it relates to making decisions. So this is really about the way a company makes decisions. And I want to put this on a spectrum. If you want to be great at this, you want to be on this end of the spectrum. Okay, this end of the spectrum is collaborative, open, candid, transparent, free flow of information, decision-making processes. The other end of the spectrum over here is we make decisions in private. We don't let anyone have any input. We don't let people have a heads up that we're considering a change or that something may come down the pipe. When it gets announced through a memo in a very impersonal way, letting people know what the change that has come down on high is. Okay? This is bad for 2 reasons. Number one, it undermines employees feeling pride in the organization, like they have input, like they're valued, like their opinion matters. Okay, maybe it's even 3 reasons. Second reason is if you can't let employees be involved, which obviously good size organizations can't have employees involved in organization-wide decisions. Not everyone can have a voice. At least things should be communicated transparently so that employees understand why the decision was made. They have avenues to have questions answered. They have a chance to work with that employer or their boss or the upper management to understand why that decision was made that impacts them. And here's the thing that most people miss. Remember that 3rd principle of leadership about employee growth and development? Organizations that open up their decision-making processes and let people see into those processes are organizations that are propelling the growth of their people. Because being able to observe and understand why a company makes the decisions that they do is a great growth and development opportunity for employees. The way that companies make decisions is actually a great opportunity to help the organization learn, to help people grow and develop, to develop pipelines of people, let them have access and visibility into what the executive leadership team is doing, why they're making the decisions that they're making, is a great way to prepare people to move up the leadership chain. So the way that you make decisions in your company not only impacts your culture, but it impacts the development of your people. Those decision-making processes make a big difference. This one I'm going to go shorter on. Conflict, okay? Leaders need to be able to deal effectively with conflict. This one could take a lifetime to master, but it's important. You've got to be willing to have tough conversations. You've got to be willing to say when you disagree. You got to be willing to take criticism with and assume positive intent. You got to be willing to disagree with one another intellectually and not personalize it. This is an area that you've got to have clear cultural expectations. You're never going to get it perfect, and you've got to clean it up when you make mistakes. You've got to be able to deal effectively with conflict. And lastly, the seventh leadership principle is life's too short not to have some fun. As you walk around your organization as a leader, you should look for opportunities to encourage other people to enjoy their work, to make the workplace fun. There is no reason that work and fun need to be opposites. Okay? Oh, if people are laughing and having fun, they must not be working. Good God, I hope that attitude is nowhere to be found in your organization. People today can work as hard as they've ever worked and have the time of their life at the same time. And all of us as leaders in an organization should have an obligation to contribute to that upbeat, positive, joyous environment. So those are our 7 principles of leadership. I like to break it down to 7 simple words. When you show up to work in the morning, you focus on culture, on pride, growth, duds, that's dealing with the non-performers, protecting the right of good staff to work with good staff, the way we make decisions, the way we handle conflict, and is it any fun? And if you'll do those 7 things consistently, if you'll think about those 7 things consistently, you will be moving your organization forward significantly on a regular basis. Just for you guys today, I'm going to share, we, through our new brand, Better Culture, as we're taking this message to the world, we've built a roughly 3.5-hour long online leadership program called our Mindset Leadership Program. It's on demand. It can be, you can watch it through an app. You can subscribe. Those 7 principles, we break it down into 56. Not sure why it only says 55 on this slide, but there actually are 56 videos. Maybe there's an intro one that's not listed on here. But that give leaders actual, practical, challenging activities to understand, well, what is it that you can do in Principle 2 to build pride? Well, what should I be doing or thinking to grow my people? How should I with Principle 4? What specifically should I do to help enforce those standards and protect the right of good staff to work with good staff, et cetera? This new program is fantastic. It can be done as a one-off for one leader. They can take it by themselves with an awesome study guide, work totally in isolation, go through the program. They'll get a lot out of it. You could get even more out of it if you embrace the system as an organization and make it your leadership program and run cohorts and have someone internal in your organization lead that process. We have a facilitator's guide for organizations that are interested in that. We can make you the internal expert. You run this program for your people. Your folks watch the videos themselves. They come together for discussion and say, how does this apply to our workforce and where can we grow? It's been really, really well received. If you're interested in that, email me at info@betterculture.com. Anybody that's on this webinar, thanks to the Olson Group, which is a fantastic partner, I'd be happy to send a free license to this program. It retails for $749 for access to the program. I'll send you a full free license if you're interested. There's only one catch, which is I want to follow up with you, either myself or one of my colleagues, to hear if you enjoy the program, to hear what you're getting out of it. Just a quick connect. So if you're interested, shoot me an email at info@betterculture.com. We'll get you set up with a free license to that program. You can go all the way through, see what it's all about. My hope is you'll say you love it so much you want to bring it into your whole organization. But if you don't, no harm, no foul. Moving on to the second piece of this organization, or this presentation, I'm trying to turn up the culture in your organization. And I have addressed, how do we do that from the top down? How do we put constant energy into building the culture from a leadership level? It's by embracing those 7 principles of leadership and understanding the specific actions you can take on a daily basis to make those 7 principles come to life in your leaders. Well, there's a second powerful piece. If we want to fast track the growth and development of our culture, we've got to do something to inspire growth and development and contribution from the bottom up. And this is where we have recently identified what we call our 20 tenets of culture. And these are 20 employee attitudes and behaviors that if every employee in your system will adopt these, not only will it be good for your culture, but these are the behaviors and the skills of people that are just generally successful in life. So it's an opportunity to find a personal development plan for every employee in your system of things they could be working on to grow as an individual, to strengthen their team, and ultimately to strengthen their culture. So I'm going to have you guys, if you are really participating, I know how webinars go, okay? I get it. Some of you are multitasking. Some of you are checking email. If you're interested, this would be a time to really tune in because I'm going to take you through a 10-item assessment quickly. If you would like to score yourself, feel free. That's how this product ultimately is going to work. Like Travis said, we got a $100,000 grant from the state of Nebraska to build software for this, which we're about 2/3 of the way done. When we do that, there's going to be a software application that will take you through a personal assessment on how you do on all 20 of these items. And then it will turn into a coaching mechanism that gives a dashboard to the company and gives coaching videos to every single employee on a regular cadence throughout the year to help them grow on all 20 of these tenets. So if you want to play along, please rate yourself on a 1 to 10 scale on these next 10 items. 1 being, I'm terrible at that. 10 being, you couldn't find anyone better in the world at that particular thing than me, okay? So just grab a pen and paper, label it 1 through 10, and you're just going to number it 1, 2, 3, 4, or put a 5 on the first one, a 6 on the second one, whatever you want to rate yourself. So the first question, the first tenet of culture that, again, we want every employee to embrace is, are you actually coachable? Do you want to grow? If somebody comes to you with feedback, okay, that everyone's favorite word, if somebody comes specifically to you, I want you to rate yourself. How do you respond initially in the moment? Is it your natural tendency to resist that feedback, to make excuses, to explain why you did what you did, to kind of push it away, to say, yeah, but okay, but let me tell you something first. If that's you, if your initial reaction to feedback is to resist it, you've got to give yourself a pretty low score on this one, like a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or maybe a 4 out of a 10-point scale. If you generally are willing to listen to feedback and to accept it and say, I didn't think about that. Thank you. That's really helpful. I appreciate it. Then you can give yourself a 4 or a 5 or a 6 or even a 7 maybe. Okay. You're not terribly defensive and you generally appreciate feedback from people. You can only give yourself an 8 or a 9 or a 10 if you proactively ask for feedback all the time. Hey, I'm working on my presentation skills. Could you please give me some feedback after this 5-minute presentation in the meeting? Hey, I'm trying to be a better listener. If you find me interrupting you in our conversations, will you please catch me? Because I'm really trying to work on it. That's somebody who's inviting and asking for feedback on a regular basis. That's somebody who's incredibly coachable. If that's you, give yourself an 8 or a 9 or maybe even a 10 on this item. Second tenet of culture, how assertively, proactively helpful are you in the workplace? If you see somebody that might be struggling with something, take a simple example. Somebody's trying to move some office furniture around and you're at your desk and you can see what they're up to. If in general, you kind of take a sideways glance and say, I wonder what they're doing and keep doing your work. Or if they're struggling a little bit, maybe I should go help. That's someone who's a little bit reluctant to be helpful. Give yourself a little bit of a lower score. If the person looked over at you and said, hey, got a second to help me move this? And you say, yeah, sure. Hang on. Let me just finish this up. Then you're willing to be helped. Give yourself an average score. Only give yourself a really high score if you're the type of person that before you're even sure somebody needs help, you jump up out of your chair. You say, hey, let me help you move that table. Where are we going with this thing? Okay. You're proactively helpful. You volunteer your help and assistance before it's even asked. If that's you, give yourself a high score, 7, 8, 9, 10. The third tenet of culture I want to talk to you about is, do you personally assume positive intent of others, from others? So let's say somebody says or does something in the workplace that offends you or that steps on your toes a little. Maybe you got left out of a meeting that you would have liked to have been part of. Maybe you received an email from somebody that could be interpreted as a little bit snippy or annoyed. Do you assume that that other person didn't wake up in the morning to make you upset or angry? Do you assume the best of their possible intent? If you're somebody who really says, you know what, I'm sure they didn't mean it that way, or I probably just got left off, there's probably a reason that they didn't invite me to that. Do you assume positive intent? If so, give yourself a high score. If you're somebody that struggles to assume positive intent of your colleagues, give yourself a lower score. The next one is called friendly friction. Number 4. This one really has 2 pieces. Number 1, are you willing? Do you lean forward do you embrace intellectual disagreement? Do you like the competition of ideas? If somebody says something or is proposing something and you've got a question about it, you're not sure, you've got what you think might be a better idea, do you speak up? If companies want to be innovative, people need to lean forward and embrace the conflict of ideas. True innovation comes from the conflict of ideas. Conflict is not a bad thing intellectually. Okay. So if you're somebody who speaks up, who's willing to disagree, start to give yourself a higher score on this one. But here's the second part. If, when people disagree, when people have a conflict, you can keep it intellectual and not personalize it, not take offense, not feel frustrated, not insult or make other people take personal offense when you're disagreeing with them. If you can do both of those things, if you can have the type of conversations with your colleagues where intellectually we can combat, but personally we're collaborating, we have a great friendship, then give yourself a high score on this one. If you do one or the other, if you're willing to, I am willing to speak up, but I get upset when somebody disagrees with me, or I piss people off a lot of times when I do speak up, give yourself a middling score. If you don't do either one, if you both don't say when you disagree and are easily offended or offend other people a lot, give yourself a really low score on this one. Friendly friction. Number 5 is a simple one. I'm going to go fast, but in general, think about when someone new to your organization or team comes into that system. Let's say you're onboarding a new employee. How welcoming are you? Do you take the time to make sure, like a great host or hostess that's entertaining at their home, that person feels welcome, they feel oriented, they have sort of a buddy, even if you're not asked to be their onboarding buddy, like you get to know who they are, where they came from, is there anything that they need? This can apply to customers. This can apply to whatever it is. You're hosting somebody from a different department. How welcoming are you? How warm are you? Rate yourself on a 1 to 10. Number 6 is another fairly simple one. How do you show up in the work environment? Are you positive and upbeat? Or are you kind of mopey, hurried, always, what is it? Okay. If you are someone who adds positive, upbeat energy into the workplace, give yourself a high score. If you're optimistic, if you're joyful, if you smile and laugh a lot, give yourself a high score on this one. If you're somebody that's hurried, that's running from meeting to meeting, that's always making other people feel like they're imposing on your time, or that doesn't make time for a little bit of small talk or to tell a joke or to enjoy one another's company, give yourself a lower score on this one. Again, these scores aren't going anywhere. So give yourself realistic scores on these. I'm not going to ask you to turn them in. Number 7, if somebody does something to upset you, offend you, etc., how easily do you get over it? Are you forgiving, or do you hold grudges? If you can think of 6 people right now that you have enduring conflict with in your workplace, you are someone who holds grudges. Give yourself a low score on this one. If, on the other hand, you're quick to go clean up relationships when something happens, or you're just great at sort of living and let live, moving on, forgiving, forgetting, then give yourself a high score on this one. If you're truly forgiving, give yourself a high score. If you tend to hold on to resentment, to remember small snubs for 6 years, then give yourself a low score on this one. Okay, number 8 sounds simple, but I can make something real simple complicated. So get ready. Saying thank you. How good and how frequently do you express appreciation for others? I put this on 2 scales. Okay. So you've got to rate yourself on 2 things here. If you're somebody that walks around every day just saying, hey, thank you, great job, way to go. Hey, thank you, great job, way to go. You're doing okay on one scale, which is you're doing it constantly. You're doing it consistently, but you may be doing it very blandly, very unimpactfully, unmeaningfully. So there's 2 scales to consider on how effectively do you say thank you. If you do it really rarely, if you never thank people around you, you already should give yourself a low score. But there are some people out there that when they say thank you, people can tell they really mean it because they put some thought into how they express their message. They don't just send the same, thank you note. I heard a story once about a manager who, whenever she wanted to say thanks to somebody, she brought bagels and put them on their desk. And she had an employee who was gluten-free, and she did the same thing, right? Like, hey, you've been doing a great job. Here's some bagels. I put them on your desk. People stop by and tell you kudos. Like, talk about insensitive. Talk about somebody who hadn't gotten out of their routine to figure out, how could I actually more effectively say thank you in a way that would be genuinely well received by this person? So rate yourself 1 to 10. How good are you at consistently thanking people and doing it in a way that's really meaningful? Number 7. Did I just go backwards? Yes, I did. That was number 8. Number 9. Okay, this one, we have been teaching a concept for 10 years that is so powerful. If you would like to be perceived as a better, stronger leader in your organization, I want you to imagine that you are an agent, like a sports agent or a celebrity agent or a book agent, or, an author's agent for your best employees. I want you to think about how can you do positive public relations, PR, for your best employees everywhere you go. Let's say you've got a fantastic director of maintenance for your facilities. And they're just amazing with regard to the way that they manage their team, with regard to et cetera, et cetera. Are you finding 10 opportunities a month to mention to random people that either visit the company, other teams, your spouse, a waiter or a waitress, to say, oh my God, have you ever been on our campus? You should meet this guy named Rudy. He runs, you're a PR agent. You're a gusher for your great people. You never stop bragging about your great people to anybody you will listen to. If you're good at that, then you're good at this, what we call brag them up, and give yourself a high score. If, on the other hand, oh yeah, you have great people around here, but you never tell anybody that, you never let people know that your team, your company, your organization has these stars, you kind of keep it your own little secret, then you're a really bad PR agent. So give yourself a low score. Last one is probably the most complicated, but it may be the most impactful of all of the 10 things I'm going to share with you. And the question here really is, how effectively do you deliver, how frequently and effectively do you deliver a secondhand compliment? Now, a secondhand compliment is different from a firsthand compliment. A firsthand compliment would be, I go to Shelly, who's on the call here, and I say, Shelly, I really appreciate how you've been going above and beyond this last week. I know you've been putting in extra hours. It shows in what we've been able to produce. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's a firsthand compliment. And that's good. You can do those. Go ahead and do it. But that's not as powerful as if I had walked through Shelly's area of the company, struck up a conversation with, let's say, Dan, and said, hey, Dan, what's been going on around here? And he said, holy smokes, do you know what Shelly's been doing this last week? And he proceeded to tell me about what Shelly had been doing, her extra work, contributions. And then when I see Shelly, I say, Shelly, holy smokes, did Dan give me an earful in a good way about what you've been doing this last week? He just wouldn't stop gushing about all the extra effort you've been putting in and what a difference it's made to what we've been producing. It was a lot of fun just to hear how excited he is about the chance to work with you. Thanks for everything that you're doing. You're obviously a star, not just with Dan, but with me. Love that you're here. See you later. That's a secondhand compliment. And a secondhand compliment is way more powerful than a firsthand compliment for several reasons. Number one, Shelly is more likely to take that as genuine compliment because it came from, I'm not just buttering you up here. Someone actually told me that, and it's perceived as more genuine. And number two, I'm building a much stronger relationship between two people, between Shelly and Dan by the way that I conveyed that. So that's what a secondhand compliment is. So rate yourself, lastly here, on how effective are you at gathering secondhand compliments. You have to go fish for these. You've got to know from third parties who's doing great things. So you have to collect secondhand compliments, and then you've got to deliver them. So I have to go talk to Dan. I've got to say, hey, Dan, what's going on? Who's doing great work around here? And when I get that, I actually have to follow up with Shelly and relay it and give the credit to Dan. Okay. So this is complicated, but if I was a chief culture officer in your company, this is the number one thing I would do on a regular basis. I would make sure I walk around either in person or virtually collecting and delivering secondhand compliments. It's the most powerful technique that I know to build relationships and to help employees feel appreciated. So rate yourself. Do you do this? Is this even like, Brett, I've never even thought of this in my life? If so, give yourself a low score. If, on the other hand, you're finding compliments, relaying them to people, and giving the credit to the other person, give yourself a really, really high score. So that gets me close to the end of my presentation. Since this is a webinar, I can't break you guys into groups and make you discuss with one another and commit to making an improvement on one or two of those. But you can certainly do that on your own. Here's the 10 tenets that I just went through. And if you want to get something out of this webinar, I would encourage you to find one or two of these that you say, you know what, I gave myself a 3 on that. And without too much effort or energy, I could easily be a 6 or maybe a 7. And that would make a real impact on the way you're perceived, on the way your team functions, and even on the overall culture of the organization. So if you need the titles again, here's what they are: coachable, helpful, assume positive intent, friendly friction, welcoming, upbeat, forgiving, saying thanks, bragging them up, and that last one, the secondhand compliments, the gather and sow. So find one of these that you can work on over the next little while. I think you'll see it makes a real difference. If you're interested, this is the product we're building. You got to see the first 10. We've got a whole nother 10 of these. If you think that having all of your employees have exposure to this type of messaging and to have an opportunity to assess themselves privately, this isn't something that goes through HR, privately, figure out, what could I improve on? There are ways to incorporate it into HR, by the way, but we've built it in a way that we don't want it to be a plug-in tool. We want people to be honest with the assessment, and then identify 2 or 3 areas where they could improve on, and then get regular coaching videos from us throughout the year, as well as us giving those coaching videos to the company. This is you can see a little image down here of the voice for this program is a gentleman that's a real talent that we flew in from LA to run, to actually be the voice of this program, a guy named Albert, that's just terrific. So anyway, that'll be ready start of 2022. If you're interested, right now we're seeking pilot sites that we're offering a 50% discount on the program. Again, email me at info@betterculture.com and say, hey, Brett, I'd like to learn more about this 20 tenets program and how that could work for all my employees. We're really excited to have the opportunity to roll that out and, again, help organizational cultures from the bottom up. So thanks for joining from my standpoint. That brings me to the end of my portion of the presentation. And I don't know if we've still got maybe Sarah on the end or Roxy from the Olson side to close us out.
Well, thank you so much, Brett. I so appreciate you presenting to us today. I hope there's plenty of questions there in the chat. I know that we've definitely had some comments for sure. I would encourage you to, contact Brett if you wanted more information on the 20 Tenets program. I can tell you that I want more information, Brett. So please send me some. I definitely think that's something that we can all learn more about culture. That's for sure. We're never ever perfect on that end. So just a couple of other things then. For next year's AdvoCat series, the whole theme is going to be centered around culture. So I'm sure we'll be talking to you again, Brett, and having you present hopefully for next year in 2022, and seeing exactly what you are doing with your program. And I think that's very exciting. We do have a giveaway today. The winner is Leslie Cunningham. So Sarah will be sending you a box of goodies. So congratulations to Leslie. And then, Leslie. Yay! And then go back one more slide there just for a minute.
Yep.
We do have our next webinar is with Maynard Cooper Gale, and it is on November 2nd, and it is going to be talking about the fiduciary responsibilities for health and welfare plan sponsors. But there's also going to be a lot of information on the OSHA vaccine guidance with the employers that are over 100 and what that might look like. So you'll definitely want to register for that presentation in that webinar. That is something that I know all HR folks and actually C-suite people are talking about all across the country. So stay tuned for that. Any final words from you, Brett? Anything to wrap anything up?
That's it from my end. I just appreciate being on. It's fun to see all the engagement around culture.
And, you know, I apologize. I have one other announcement, and we just received, actually, during the presentation, it was approved for both CRI, HRCI, and SHRM credits. So when we email out the webinar recording, we'll send out those numbers for the credits as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, thank you so much for joining us today, and everyone have a great day. Thanks again, Brett.
Absolutely. You're welcome. See you, everybody.
Go out and make that culture better.
Which we like to hear.
Bye-bye.
Bye.